Isabel Vance and I are both lawyers, so for convenience, we share an expensive international legal database account. On the second day of Isabel's business trip, I logged into our account to do some final prep for an upcoming trial. In the search history, one entry that wasn't mine stood out: how to challenge the admissibility of audio evidence. The most critical piece of evidence in my case was an audio recording. I immediately dialed Isabel's number. "Did you use our database account?" There was a pause on the other end. Then she laughed it off as if nothing was wrong. "Oh, Tim, the new intern at my firm, borrowed it to look something up a few days ago. He probably forgot to log out." "What's up?" I said it was nothing and hung up with a smile. Tim, the opposing counsel in my upcoming trial, and Isabel's personal mentee. I looked at the original evidence already backed up on my computer and then copied a new file onto a flash drive. I arrived early on the day of the trial. Isabel was there too, sitting in the front row of the gallery, looking elegant and intelligent in a chic pantsuit. She gave me a reassuring smile and mouthed the words, "Good luck." I smiled back, my gaze drifting past her to Tim, who was sitting beside her. He had put extra effort into his appearance today, dressed in a tailored white suit that made him look sharp and professional. He was looking up at Isabel, the adoration and dependency in his eyes practically spilling out. Isabel leaned down and whispered something to him. He lowered his head, a little flustered, but couldn't stop the corners of his mouth from turning up. If it weren't for that search history, I might have been fooled by my wife's virtuous and devoted act, too. The air conditioning in the courtroom was blasting, but I felt a hot flush of anger. The trial began, and everything proceeded just as I had anticipated. As expected, the opposing counsel challenged the admissibility of my audio evidence. I calmly and methodically refuted each of their points. When it was Tim's turn to speak as an auxiliary counsel, he stood up, his voice clear and his arguments well-structured. The points he raised hit precisely on the weak spots in my chain of evidence. Every single argument carried the shadow of Isabel. In the gallery, Isabel watched him with a look of pride and admiration, as if gazing upon a flawless piece of art she had personally polished. It turned out I was the one on the outside looking in. We were law school classmates, 10 years together from the classroom to the altar. I had always thought we were soulmates, fighting life's battles side by side. But she had already chosen a new partner for battle, and I had become the stepping stone to pave her new lover's way. The trial ended. I won. As I walked out of the courthouse, Isabel hurried over, trying to take my arm. "I knew you'd be fine." The familiar, intimate tone of her voice now just sounded sarcastic. I subtly pulled away from her touch and adjusted my tie. "Ms. Vance's intern is very impressive." I almost lost. The smile on Isabel's face froze for a second before she recovered. "He's new. You have to give them a chance to learn the ropes." Tim came up behind them, standing timidly behind Isabel. He looked at me and said quietly, "You were amazing, sir. I still have a lot to learn from you." His eyes, however, held a challenge as sharp as a needle. I chuckled, my gaze falling on the watch on his wrist. It was the gift Isabel had given me for my birthday last month. Custom made, she had said. One of a kind. My stare made Tim instinctively hide his hand behind his back. The color drained from Isabel's face. "What do you want for dinner tonight? I'll make a reservation." She was desperate to change the subject. "Can't. I have work at the firm," I said flatly, turning and walking toward my car. Sitting in the driver's seat, I watched the reflection of Isabel and Tim standing shoulder to shoulder in the rearview mirror. I finally lost it, slamming my fist on the steering wheel, my body trembling slightly. My phone buzzed. It was a message from my best friend, Hex. "Leo, my man, I got the stuff. Got to say, your wife's counter-surveillance skills are wasted. She should have been a spy." I took a deep breath and started the car. "Isabel, Tim, this game is just getting started." I didn't go home. I drove straight to Hex's workshop. Hex was a college buddy of mine. After graduation, he skipped a traditional career and specialized in this kind of special ops. "Here's what you asked for." Hex handed me a manila envelope. "The spare key to your garage, and the files I pulled from the dashcam of that flashy Maserati. Isabel had recently bought a new Maserati, claiming it was for making a good impression on clients. She treasured that car, never letting the keys out of her sight. Even I rarely got to touch it. Also, I ran a check on that Tim guy. Hex opened a file on his computer. His background is clean. Normal family, straight a student all the way through school. But it looks like he's suddenly flush with cash. Bought a new BMW last month, paid in full, and a luxury condo downtown. How does a recent grad and intern get that kind of money? The answer was obvious. Thanks, Hex. Send me the bill. Don't be like that. Hex waved his hand. But seriously, Leo, are you sure about this? That woman, Isabel, I'm the one who chose her. This is my mess to clean up. I cut him off and grabbed the envelope. I know what I'm doing. Late that night, I used the spare key to let myself into the house. The living room was pitch black. Isabel wasn't back yet. I slipped on my house shoes and, without turning on any lights, went straight to the study. In the study, the screensaver was glowing on Isabel's computer. I typed in her birthday, password incorrect. I typed in our wedding anniversary, password incorrect. I stared at the white BMW on her screensaver and suddenly had an idea. I entered the license plate number of Tim's BMW. The computer beeped and unlocked. My heart felt like it was being squeezed by an invisible hand, the pain suffocating. The desktop was clean, with only a single folder named Project Stardust. I knew that name all too well. It was our firm's most important project this year, a multi-billion-dollar international M&A deal. I was the project lead. I clicked open the folder. Inside was a single encrypted document. I tried a few passwords, but none of them worked. I leaned back against the cold chair and closed my eyes. Isabel, what else have you been hiding from me? The next morning, I got up and started making breakfast, just like any other day. Isabel came up from behind and wrapped her arms around me, resting her chin on my shoulder, her voice husky with sleep. Honey, why did you get back so late last night? An emergency at the office. I calmly fried an egg. What about you? Didn't you say you had to entertain a client last night? Yeah, I drank too much, so I just slept at a hotel. Her arms tightened around me. I'm sorry. I've been so busy lately. I've been neglecting you. I turned off the stove and turned to face her, looking at her beautiful face. Isabel, we're married. If something's going on, I hope you won't hide it from me. Her eyes flickered for a moment. Then she smiled. Of course not. Why would I ever hide anything from you? I looked at her and suddenly felt like I was looking at a stranger. This woman I had shared a bed with for 5 years. It was like I had never really known her at all. The progress meeting for Project Stardust was set for Friday. The atmosphere in the conference room was tense. As the project lead, I sat at the head of the table, reporting on our current progress. When I got to a key technical clause, I deliberately paused and looked at the head of the legal department sitting across from me. Regarding this point, we need a more detailed risk assessment. Ms. Vance, does your firm have experts in this area? I had suddenly thrown the question to Isabel, who was attending as an outside consultant. All eyes in the room turned to her. She clearly hadn't expected me to call her out in public. She froze for a second before adjusting her glasses. Of course, our firm has a top-tier team ready to support the project at any time. That's great. I smiled. Perfect, actually. I hear that Tim, the associate at your firm, has done quite a bit of research in this area. Why don't we have him take charge of coordinating this part of the work? As soon as the words left my mouth, the room fell silent. Everyone knew Tim was just an intern. Putting him in charge of such a core component of the project was ridiculous. The color drained from Isabel's face. She looked at me, her eyes filled with a warning. I met her gaze calmly, a faint, unreadable smile on my lips. What's the matter? Does Ms. Vance think that's a bad idea? Director Kent, a senior partner from her firm sitting next to her, spoke up, his tone laced with annoyance. This project is critical, and trusting this to an intern seems a bit reckless. Don't you think? You worry too much, Mr. Peterson. I picked up my coffee and took a small sip. I trust Ms. Vance's judgment. An intern she personally mentored must be exceptionally talented. Besides, you have to give young people a chance, right? I threw the same excuse she had given me right back in her face. Isabel's lips tightened into a thin line, a vein throbbing at her temple. She knew I was backing her into a corner. If she refused, she would be publicly admitting Tim wasn't capable, which would be a slap in her own face. If she agreed, she would be taking a massive risk. After a long moment, she hissed through clenched teeth. Fine. We'll do as Director Kent says. The others in the room had expressions like they were settling in to watch a good show. I set my coffee cup down, the clink against the tabletop echoing crisply in the room. Then it settled. Meeting adjourned. I was the first to walk out of the conference room without a single look back. Back in my office, I locked the door and leaned against it, only then feeling the cold sweat on my back. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Isabel. "Leo, what the hell do you think you're doing?" I stared at the words, let out a cold laugh, deleted the message, and blocked her number. What was I doing? I wanted to see just how far she would go for her precious new man. That weekend, I went to my parents' house. My mom was surprised to see me show up alone. "Where's Isabel? On another business trip?" "Yeah, she's busy." I put the supplements I'd brought on the table. My dad came out of his study, glanced at me, and said in a low voice, "In a marriage, you need to communicate. Don't try to carry everything on your own." A warmth spread through my chest. "I know, Dad." After dinner, I walked with my mom in the garden. "Leo, is something wrong between you and Isabel?" she asked suddenly. I was silent. "Mom, if Isabel did something to betray me, what would you do?" My mom stopped and took my hand. Hers was warm. "Sweetheart, no matter what happens, you have to remember that your family will always have your back." My eyes stung and I fought back tears. After leaving my parents' house, I drove aimlessly through the streets. On some dark impulse, I drove to the building where Tim's condo was. The white BMW was parked in its designated spot. I killed the engine and sat there quietly in the car. I don't know how much time passed before a black Maserati slowly pulled into the parking garage. The birthday gift I had given Isabel, parked next to the BMW. Isabel got out, walked around to the passenger side, and opened the door. Tim got out, wrapped his arm around Isabel's waist, and leaned in to kiss her on the cheek. Isabel smiled, linked her arm with his, and the two of them walked into the apartment building, nestled closely together. In that instant, it felt like the blood in my veins had turned to ice. I stared at the closed lobby door, my fingernails digging so deep into my palms that they drew blood. So her so-called business trips, her late nights at work, it was all to be with another man. My supposedly happy marriage was nothing but an elaborate lie. I picked up my phone and dialed Hex's number. "Hex, I need a favor." My voice was so calm it scared even me. "I want Isabel Vance and Tim completely and utterly ruined." On Monday, I got to the office half an hour early. Walking into my office, I saw a steaming cup of coffee and my favorite sandwich on my desk. A note was tucked under the cup in Isabel's handwriting. "Honey, don't be mad anymore. I'll make it up to you at home tonight." I picked up the sandwich and threw it straight into the trash. I turned on my computer, and a new email popped up. The sender was Tim. The subject line was "Preliminary Proposal for Project Stardust Risk Assessment." I opened the attachment. It was a beautifully crafted PowerPoint presentation. From structure to content, it was flawless. Even better than I had expected. I looked at the small logo in the bottom right corner of the slides, a design combining their initials, Isabel and Tim. She was using our life's work to pave the way for her lover. I closed the email, took out my flash drive, and plugged it into the computer. On it was what Hex had sent me last night, a video. The footage was a bit shaky, but the audio was crystal clear. It was from the underground garage of Tim's apartment building. Isabel and Tim were leaning against the car, arguing fiercely. "Are you crazy? Leo is already suspicious, and you dare to provoke him so openly?" That was Isabel, her voice tight with suppressed rage. "I'm provoking him?" Tim's voice grew sharp. "Isabel, get it straight. I'm the one helping you right now. Without me, could you have gotten the core data for Project Stardust? Without me, Could you have played your husband for a fool? I'm warning you, Tim, don't forget our agreement. When this is over, you get the money and I get Leo. If you dare screw this up for me, I'll make sure you have nothing. Ha, trying to scare me? Tim sneered. Isabel, don't you forget. I have proof of all your dirty little tricks. We're in the same boat now. If this boat sinks, neither of us is making it out alive. The video ended there. I watched it over and over until I had memorized every word. So it wasn't just betrayal. It was a conspiracy against me. The core data for Project Stardust. I shot up from my chair and bolted to the firm's records room. All the physical documents for Project Stardust were locked in a special security cabinet. Only I and one other vice president had the keys. I unlocked the cabinet. The files were all there. I flipped through them page by page, my heart sinking to the pit of my stomach. One of the most critical documents, a draft of the merger agreement, showed signs of having been photocopied. The traces were subtle, but I was certain. I immediately pulled the security footage from the records room. Last Thursday night, half an hour after I left the office, a figure appeared on the screen. It was Isabel. She had used my spare keycard to get into the building and the records room. She expertly opened the security cabinet, took out the file, photocopied it, put it back, and left. The whole process took less than 10 minutes. And at that exact time, she had told me she was with a client. I watched the familiar yet strange figure on the security monitor, a chill running through my entire body. I was the biggest fool of all. I went back to my office and called the other VP. Mr. Hayes, I have some new thoughts on Project Stardust. I'd like to chat with you privately. Mr. Hayes was a company veteran, a man my father had personally promoted. He was a man of integrity who despised backstabbers more than anything. We met at the coffee shop downstairs from the office. I didn't beat around the bush. I put the security footage and the video of Isabel and Tim arguing in the garage in front of him. As the videos played, Mr. Hayes's face slowly turned ashen. That son of a bitch! He slammed his fist on the table after watching, splashing coffee everywhere. Leo, what are you going to do about this? Mr. Hayes looked at me, his eyes filled with concern. Mr. Hayes, I said, looking him in the eye and speaking each word deliberately, I'm going to make them spit out every last thing they took. Mr. Hayes was silent for a moment, then nodded. Good. Whatever you need me to do, just say the word. I need you to help me put on a show. On Friday, at the final review meeting for Project Stardust, all the top executives and representatives from our partner firms were present. Isabel and Tim were also in attendance, representing their law firm. Tim was wearing a black suit today, his hair perfectly styled, looking brimming with confidence. He sat next to Isabel, the two of them whispering to each other from time to time, a picture of perfect teamwork. The meeting began. I gave a final presentation on the entire project. Then I changed my tone. Before we finalize the proposal, I think it's necessary to resolve some internal issues first. I looked at Isabel and smiled. Ms. Vance, I hear your firm recently took on a merger case similar to Project Stardust. I was wondering how that's progressing? Isabel's expression changed instantly. Director Kent, what are you implying? Nothing at all. I turned on the projector. On the screen was the logo of another company, Horizon Group, the biggest competitor for Project Stardust. I'm just curious why you, Ms. Vance, as the legal consultant for our project, would simultaneously take on a case from our competitor. That doesn't seem to align with industry ethics, does it? The room erupted in murmurs. All eyes like daggers shot toward Isabel. That's slander. Isabel shot to her feet, her voice sharp. Our firm has absolutely not taken on any case from Horizon Group. Is that so? I clicked the remote. A contract appeared on the screen. It was a legal services contract between Horizon Group and an obscure consulting firm. And the legal representative of that consulting firm was none other than Tim's father. I then played an audio recording. It was a phone call between Isabel and the CEO of Horizon Group. In the recording, Isabel detailed every aspect of Project Stardust and promised to get our final bid price before the review meeting. Isabel, you backstabbing bitch. The representative from our partner firm slammed his hand on the table and shot up from his chair. All the blood drained from Isabel's face, leaving it white as a sheet. She stumbled, grabbing the table to keep from falling. Tim was panicking too. He grabbed Isabel's arm, his lips trembling, unable to utter a single word. "Director Kent, what the hell is going on?" our CEO asked, his face dark enough to drip water. "CEO, everyone." I stood up and scanned the room. "It's very simple. Ms. Vance used her position to steal our company's trade secrets and leak them to a competitor in an attempt to manipulate the bidding process for a legal profit." My gaze finally landed on Isabel, cold and piercing. "Isabel, am I wrong?" She looked at me, her eyes filled with shock, rage, and a sliver of fear. She probably never imagined that her supposedly seamless plan would be exposed so publicly. The room descended into chaos. Security guards rushed in and restrained Isabel as she tried to flee. Tim collapsed into his chair, his face ashen. I walked over to him and looked down at him. "Tim, do you know what the maximum sentence for corporate espionage is?" He snapped his head up, looking at me in terror, his body shaking like a leaf in the wind. "No, it wasn't me. She made me do it. She forced me." He pointed at Isabel, who was being held by security, and shrieked hysterically. "It was her. She threatened me with my career. She said if I didn't help her, she'd make sure I could never work in this industry again. I was forced. Mr. Kent, you have to believe me. I was forced." He lunged forward, trying to grab my leg, but I kicked him away. "Forced?" I sneered. "When you were using the money she gave you to buy a car and a condo, you didn't seem to think you were being forced then, did you?" I took out my phone, played a video, and tossed it in front of him. It was a video of him, arm in arm with Isabel at a BMW dealership, swiping a card with a huge smile on his face. Tim's shouts died in his throat. He looked at the video of himself, then at the disheveled Isabel, and the last shred of hope in his eyes was extinguished. The police arrived quickly. Isabel and Tim were taken away on the spot as suspects in a corporate espionage case. Before she was led away, Isabel stared at me, her eyes venomous as a snake. "Leo Kent, you're ruthless." "Am I?" I walked up to her and lowered my voice, speaking at a volume only we could hear. "Isabel, this is just the beginning. Everything you owe me, I'm going to collect with interest." Her body went rigid. The farce was over. Only our company's executives remained in the conference room. The CEO walked over and patted my shoulder. "Leo, we owe you for this one. The company's losses would have been unimaginable otherwise. I was just doing my job. We're putting Project Stardust on hold for now. You should take a vacation, get some rest." I nodded. Walking out of the building, the sunlight was blinding. I tilted my head back and took a deep breath. The nauseating smell of betrayal was gone from the air. I drove back to the home I had shared with Isabel. This place I once considered my sanctuary now seemed alien and laughable. I went into the walk-in closet, took out the suitcase I had packed long ago, and started gathering my things. I didn't have much, so it didn't take long. Finally, I opened the drawer of the nightstand. Inside was a velvet box. I opened it. A ring lay quietly inside. The one Isabel had used to propose to me. She said I was the brightest star in her life. I took the ring, walked to the window, and threw it out without a second thought. Goodbye, Isabel. And goodbye to 10 years of my stupid, wasted youth. I moved back in with my parents. My mom saw me dragging my suitcase in but didn't ask any questions. She just quietly helped me set up my old room and made me a bowl of hot noodles. My dad sat on the living room sofa, pretending to read the newspaper, but he wasn't taking in a single word. I knew they were both worried about me. "Dad, Mom, I'm okay," I said after finishing the noodles and wiping my mouth. I just missed being home. My mom's eyes reddened. "My dad's side. It's good to be back. It's good." That night, I lay in the bed I'd slept in since I was a child, smelling the scent of sunshine on the sheets, and didn't sleep a wink. Just before dawn, I got a call from Hex. "Leo, Isabel made bail." I wasn't surprised at all. She had the top lawyers from her entire firm behind her. The first thing she did after getting out was go see the CEO of Horizon Group. Hex's voice was grave. My guy lost them. No idea what they talked about. Got it. I hung up, my gaze turning cold. Isabel, you think this is over? You're so naive. I got out of bed, got dressed, and made myself look impeccable. The man in the mirror had a determined, vibrant look in his eyes. I called my dad's secretary. Mr. Chun, could you schedule a meeting for me with Mr. Cross from Horizon Group? Just say I want to discuss a business proposition. My dad's company and Horizon Group had been business rivals for years. But in business, there are no permanent enemies, only permanent interests. Mr. Cross and I met at a private club. He was a man in his late 40s, well-maintained, looking younger than his age. He was a little surprised to see me. Mr. Kent, I've heard a lot about you. To what do I owe the pleasure of this meeting? You're too kind, Mr. Cross. I cut straight to the chase. I came here today to offer you a gift. I pushed a flash drive across the table to him. What's this? You'll know when you see it. Mr. Cross gave me a suspicious look, then plugged the flash drive into the laptop he had with him. On the drive was all the data Isabel had stolen about our Project Stardust, as well as the complete recordings of her promising to help Horizon Group win the bid. But beyond that, there was something even more important. It was a detailed plan concocted by Isabel and her firm's senior partners to short Horizon Group stock. Their plan was to first use the inside information from Project Stardust to help Horizon Group win the contract, driving up its stock price. Then, they would suddenly leak a scandal about Horizon Group using bribery during the bidding process, causing the stock to plummet. They stood to make a fortune from the move. And Isabel was the time bomb they had planted right next to Horizon Group. Mr. Cross's face grew paler as he read, beads of cold sweat forming on his forehead. That venomous bitch. He slammed the laptop shut, his body trembling with rage. Mr. Cross, are we ready to talk about a partnership now? I picked up my teacup and watched him calmly. He looked at me, his expression complex. Mr. Kent, what do you want? I don't want anything. I smiled. I just want Isabel and the people behind her to pay the price they deserve. Mr. Cross was a smart man. He knew that working with us to take down Isabel and her law firm was his most advantageous move. We quickly reached an agreement. After leaving the club, I received an unexpected call. It was Tim's mother. She was sobbing hysterically on the phone. Mr. Kent, I'm begging you, please, let our Tim go. He's still so young. His life can't be ruined like this. He's still young? I sneered. When he was colluding with Isabel, stealing trade secrets, and nearly destroying our company, did he think about how young he was then? It was all Isabel. It was that goddamn Isabel. She tricked our Tim. She told him she would mentor him, that she'd make him the youngest partner at the firm. Our Tim was just tricked by her. Ma'am, is there any point in saying all this now? Yes. Yes, there is. Tim's mother said urgently. We have evidence. We have a recording of Isabel admitting that she planned the whole thing. If you'll just let Tim go, we'll give you the recording. I fell silent. The dog-eat-dog drama was playing out exactly as expected. Mr. Kent, please. He's our only son. Fine. I heard my own calm voice respond. Send me the recording. As for Tim, his sentence reduction will depend on the value of this recording. After hanging up, I received an audio file. I played it. It was a conversation between Isabel and Tim. Don't worry. Once I'm done with Leo, divorce him, and get my hands on his shares, I'll promote you immediately. Then the whole firm will be ours. That old fossil should have retired ages ago. The first thing I'll do when I become a senior partner is kick him out. Leo, he's just a stupid man. I've had him fooled for 10 years, and he still thinks I genuinely love him. If it weren't for his father's influence, I would have divorced him ages ago. In the recording, Isabel's voice was dripping with contempt and calculation. I listened to the whole thing without expression, then forwarded the recording to two people. One was Mr. Cross. The other was the founding partner of Isabel's law firm, the one she had called an old fossil. After doing all that, I drove to the river and rolled down my window. The evening breeze blew in, carrying a slight chill. I looked at the shimmering lights on the water and suddenly felt tired. Our 10-year relationship was a joke. I had given her all my heart, and in the end, I had only served to facilitate her love for someone else. My phone rang. It was Isabel. I hung up immediately. She persistently called again. I answered but said nothing. "Leo, where are you?" Her voice on the other end was clearly panicked. Did you send something to Mr. Cross and Mr. Davis?" "Isabel," I said calmly. "The game is over." "No. Leo, let me explain. It's not what you think. It was all Tim. He seduced me. The person I love has always been you. Is that so?" I let out a soft laugh. "Too bad. You disgust me." I hung up the phone and blocked her from all my contacts. The next day, the entire financial and legal world exploded. Isabel's law firm was at the center of a massive scandal. Senior partners were under investigation by the SEC for insider trading and stock market manipulation. The firm's stock plummeted the moment the market opened. Countless investors were wiped out, and Isabel, as the central figure in the incident, became a pariah, public enemy number one. Stealing trade secrets, betraying partners, faking a relationship, every charge was enough to destroy her reputation completely. I saw the news footage of her being escorted out of her office by police. She was wearing an expensive suit, but she looked haggard and disheveled. Through the screen, I could see the despair and venom in her eyes. Meanwhile, I was sitting on the sofa in my dad's office, leisurely sipping coffee. "Is it all taken care of?" my dad asked. "It's clean. What are your plans now?" "First, get the divorce finalized. Then maybe go abroad for a while, clear my head." My dad nodded and didn't say anything more. That afternoon, I got a call from Isabel's mother. She cursed me out from top to bottom over the phone. Said I was cruel and heartless, with no regard for our marriage, for sending my own wife to prison. I didn't say a word, just quietly listened to her rant. "Ma'am, are you finished?" I asked calmly when she paused for breath. "If you're done, then I'm hanging up. Oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you the condo Isabel and I owned is on the market. If you want to keep any mementos, you should contact the real estate agent soon." With that, I hung up. Dealing with clueless people like her, every extra word is a waste of breath. A week later, I received the divorce decree from the court. Isabel and I were finally, completely done. The day I got the decree, I paid a visit to the prison. Through a thick pane of glass, I saw Isabel. She was in a prison uniform, her hair cut short. She had lost a lot of weight, her eyes were sunken, and all traces of her former elegance were gone. She became agitated when she saw me, grabbing the phone and screaming at me.
"Leo Kent.
"I'll haunt you even as a ghost." I picked up my phone and watched her calmly. "Isabel, you know what? I came here today to tell you something. That watch you gave Tim, you think I only found out when I saw it on him? I designed that watch 3 years ago. The design file is still on my computer." I paused, watching her face freeze instantly, and said, word by word, "The logo on it. It stands for liar and you. You liar." Her pupils contracted violently. "Also, did you really think you got away with stealing the Project Stardust files without anyone knowing? The merger agreement you photocopied was a second version I planted. The real version was sent to the executives just 10 minutes before the review meeting began. What you sold to Horizon Group was, from the very beginning, a worthless piece of paper." Isabel's face went from deathly pale to a deep, bruised purple. She stared at me, her eyes burning with a hatred so intense it felt like she wanted to tear me to pieces. "Why?" she squeezed out through her teeth. "No reason." I stood up and gave her one last look. "I just wanted you to know that if I can build you up, I can also make you crash and burn." I turned and walked away without looking back. Behind me, the visitation room filled with the sound of her hysterical screaming and things being smashed. It had nothing to do with me anymore. 3 months later, I had all my affairs in order and was ready to fly to London. At the airport, I ran into Mr. Hayes. He was seeing his son off to study abroad. "Leo, off to somewhere?" "Yeah, Mr. Hayes. Just getting away for a bit." "Good for you," Mr. Hayes said with a sigh. "Your dad told me everything. You did the right thing. In the end, a man has to rely on himself." We chatted for a few more minutes and then said our goodbyes. Before boarding, I scrolled through my phone. A news alert popped up. Horizon Group CEO, Mr. Cross, criminally detained by police on suspicion of large-scale commercial bribery. I smiled and turned off my phone. In this world, there is no hate without reason, and no love without a price. Every gift is secretly marked with a tag. The plane took off, climbing through the clouds. I looked out the window at the deep blue sky and the cotton-like clouds, a sense of peace settling over me. The air in London was damp and cool. I rented an apartment not far from the university and started a new life. My days were filled with classes, libraries, museums, or sometimes nothing at all, just sitting by the Thames, feeding pigeons, and letting my mind wander. I hadn't felt this relaxed in a long time. One day, in a small art gallery, I saw a painting. It depicted a man standing on the edge of a cliff, his back to a deep abyss, his face toward the rising sun. There was no fear on his face, only peace and hope. I stood in front of that painting for a long time. The gallery owner, an elegant British woman, came over and said to me, "The name of this piece is Rebirth." Rebirth. I smiled. Yes, rebirth. The day before I left London, I got a call from Hex. Leo, Isabel, and Tim were both sentenced. 15 years for her, 7 for him. Also, one more thing. Isabel got into a fight in prison. Someone broke her arm. They say it'll probably be a permanent injury. So, Leo, got anything you want to say? I thought for a moment and said, I wish her a pleasant rest of her life. Then I hung up. I booked a flight back home for the next day. The moment the plane landed, I looked at the familiar city, the familiar lights, and suddenly felt that it was all in the past. My dad came to pick me up. He froze for a second when he saw me. You're thinner and tanner. He took my luggage, his words critical, but he couldn't hide the concern in his eyes. Dad, I'm back. I gave him a big hug. It's good to have you back. On the way home, my dad said suddenly, by the way, the government put that Horizon Group project back up for bid. Our company won it. I was surprised. How did you manage that? My dad glanced at me in the rearview mirror and smiled. My son taught me, the way to deal with an enemy is to hit them once so hard they can never get back up. I looked at my dad's profile and suddenly broke into a smile. We were a family. When I got home, my mom had prepared a huge spread of all my favorite dishes. The three of us sat around the table, eating and talking as if nothing had ever happened. Sunlight streamed through the window, bathing the dining table in a warm, bright glow.